Today on the topic show, GOP debate highlight of Christie and Tim Scott, feminist website Jezebel to shut down after 16 years of operation, Vince McMahon to sell $700 million of TKO stock, McDonald's and Krispy Kreme may expand their partnership, Amazon Prime expands into healthcare offering, Nvidia on track to release 3 AI chips for China, but it's 1 month after the US banned all exports of AI chips to China. Beyond Meat is also laying off staff due to the sales falling about 9% in Q3. All of that and much more on The Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder released twice today. Guys say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of November, so if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have McDonald's and Krispy Kreme looking to possibly expand their partnership, perhaps as effective as they expand their users' belt buckles and belts. You see, because not exactly health food. Now, it looks like, thanks to CNBC, 2 restaurant companies are starting to work together for more than a year ago to serve Krispy Kreme donuts at McDonald's restaurants, which I think would be pretty effective given the dietary preferences of someone who shops at McDonald's. Why not have one of those signature Krispy Kreme donut desserts? And of course, convenience is king. They noted that the shares of the donut chain were down 10% in morning trading after the company's third quarter earnings and revenues fell short of Wall Street expectations. Now, out of curiosity, now granted the stock is changing on a mere second basis, but what is Krispy Kreme looking at like these days? Krispy Kreme stock. Let's see. So in terms of Krispy Kreme stock, looks like last week it was down about 5%, 2.5%. 1 month average up 3.73%. 6 month average down 13.84%. Year to date they're up 23.59%. 1 year total is negative 9.8%. 5 year is down 32.45%. So overall, it's been fluctuating a little bit. Looks like it's starting to go back up. So again, as of the time of this recording, it's $12.92 per share. And it looks like by March, they had their pilot program in which they had these donuts at the restaurants expand to about 160 restaurant locations across Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky. The biggest test was meant to assess the customer demand and to understand how larger scale launch would affect restaurant operations. They also know that McDonald's has been leaning into coffee and common pairing with coffee is donuts, and that's in an attempt to encourage diners to visit more frequently. At the same time, the burger chain has been cutting back on its bakery items like cinnamon rolls and blueberry muffins, which, now granted, I'm not their target demographic or the customer. I haven't been to McDonald's since I believe, when was the Nintendo 64? Yeah, probably about 20, 30 years ago. But yeah, I don't know how much a Cinnabon. There's something that a Cinnabon, like those things, just seem to belong in airports or malls. Like this, I'm not surprised it doesn't seem to be doing too well at McDonald's. Same with the muffins, but for some odd reason, I think Krispy Kreme just sounds like it would work together a little bit better. Now it looks like he added the company learned faster. Krispy Kreme CEO Josh Charleston said at the company's conference call Thursday. He added that the company had learned from consumers at fast food restaurants behave similarly to one at Krispy Kreme's other retail locations. When asked for continued comment, he said, quote, "We've seen that both the loose donuts and prepackaged donuts are well received," unquote, adding that the sales would bolster the overall Krispy Kreme brand. Now, Krispy Kreme also uses a, quote, hub and spoke, unquote, model that lets it make and distribute its treats efficiently. Production hubs, which are either stores or donut factories, send off freshly made donuts every day to retail locations such as grocery stores and gas stations. Anecdotally speaking, I've seen that at the checkout line at Walmart, where it looks like very much a thing of convenience, not convenience. It's more of one of those products which is more of a spontaneous purchase. You see this, one of the key things you see in retail evolution was putting products right at the checkout. And they found that those are the things that you don't go to the store for a candy bar unless you have a copious amount of time in your hand and you don't care about your health. But nevertheless, normal people don't go to the grocery store just specifically for a candy bar or a pack of gum. But if they're on the checkout, and I don't know if this is by manufacturer, just design, or life, but sometimes the checkouts are slower than molasses. While you're at the checkout, you are forced to stand there. And they just happen to put products right there in your face. So it's a brilliant evolution in regards to the retail. And you've seen this increase their sales throughout the years. And recently, Walmart started to put those donuts there. And the sales have been doing pretty good because they haven't been delisted or they haven't been taken out of the stores. You ever notice how some of your favorite brands will be out the store, then after maybe half a year, it's gone. That just means either the company wasn't making a big enough profit on the product or it wasn't moving it frequently enough for them to actually make it a good sense product to contain in their portfolio long term. Now, the shares of the donut chain have been fluctuating more and more. Company stock has risen more than 20% this year, given the market cap of $2.1 billion. That is a lot of donuts. And then also, it looks like Christie became known for their late night cookie chain known as Insomnia Cookies. Although we actually discussed that on the show a couple months ago, they were looking at strategic alternatives, most likely to spin it off. So in terms of business partnerships, this certainly seems to make sense, especially if McDonald's wants to push more and more of their coffee. Coffee is one of the most profitable things in terms of retail and restaurants. Just go to the big box mart and buy yourself a big old bag of beans for, what do I buy mine for? I buy mine, the cheap beans that's manufactured by a company that also makes airbags, is owned by Tata, that giant conglomerate. That's what I've been recently purchasing because it's one of the lowest cost per unit per ounce for the beans. And it tastes well enough. But most coffee brands, like the cost per unit when you make it at home, I mean, it's pennies. It's a phenomenal ROI from a consumer perspective, but when you sell it, that's where they really make a lot of profit, and it's one of the most profitable things on the menu at a lot of restaurants. So it makes sense McDonald's is trying to lean into that, and one of the most popular things to consume with coffee is donuts. So it'll be interesting to see how much they continue to expand this partnership, and at which point is Krispy Kreme ever concerned about cannibalizing sales, which other brands have done throughout the years by expanding too much and putting their logo and their product darn near everywhere. Considering that Krispy Kreme, they don't have as many locations as they used to. They used to have not as many locations as Starbucks or Grains of Sand. It wasn't that crazy. But back in my day when I was a youngster, they had many stores all over. You'd go to the store and it'd be a magical experience. You'd see the donuts on the conveyor belt. But nowadays you're seeing them more and more, these convenience stores and as well as these restaurants, or I guess in this case fast food. I venture to think it's probably going to be a good mutually beneficial relationship between the two companies. I wouldn't be surprised to see how it rolls out nationwide. And they already have that logistics set up, so they have the distribution. So you don't have to worry about Krispy Kreme only having one location in the U.S. and they have to ship it all over. They already have many distribution chains hubs throughout the country. It makes it even easier for them to go nationwide with these types of projects. So I'd venture to say I think it's probably going to be a pretty good initiative. Actually, let me know in the comments, when was the last time you purchased a Krispy Kreme donut? And do you think this will be a big win for them? Or will it be, what's a good metaphor? A crusty donut, perhaps? Or a expired donut? Nevertheless, metaphor aside, let me know what you have to think in the comments. It'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, you have Amazon Prime going to expand in healthcare services. Now, I am, not to brag, but I am part of the 1% of Americans who don't have Amazon Prime. Partially because the big thing that I keep pushing is the free shipping, which I'm an old soul. Part of the mystery of buying something online is you never know when it's going to get there. And again, it's Amazon. You don't need anything on that website. Well, I guess in this case, unless it's a life-saving drug. But in most cases, 99.99% of the time, you don't need anything on Amazon. It's a luxury, or in my case, a book, which I wouldn't die without the books. I'd be sorely disappointed if I didn't have a book to read every day. But nevertheless, it's a luxury. And it's a little bit of mystery. It's like gambling for cheap. Instead of having Amazon Prime, just think, all right, it says it's going to get here in a week, but sometimes it could be a day or 2 days. You never know. It's a mystery. So instead of playing the lottery, which the odds are basically zero, you could play that where the odds are basically 100% you'll get your product from Amazon. If not, they refund you. But nevertheless, that's just me. I know they also have Amazon Video, but again, I don't see much value in that since really usually doesn't make you smarter or more intelligent. But nevertheless, a lot of people love Amazon Prime, and it is a multi-billion-dollar business initiative, hugely successful. Now, they noticed that Amazon Prime announced that, and it's thanks to Business Insider, a representative, or rather a writer, by the name of Tom Carter. And they noted that Amazon announced that Prime subscribers will get $100 off membership of its healthcare services. Members will be able to get 24/7 virtual care from One Medical for $99 per year. The tech company is ramping up its healthcare after buying One Medical for $3.9 billion, which I think it's a prudent business decision because, again, Amazon wants to expand. They've already won e-commerce. I mean, Walmart's getting there. They're slowly building it up, but still, if you look at market share, especially the United States, they won. Now, where else could they compete? Well, healthcare, there are a lot of unhealthy Americans. So that makes sense. There's a huge demand for healthcare, pharmaceuticals. That would be another way to add more value to your Amazon subscriber members, as well as get more money out of them as well. Now, it'll be interesting to see how this rolls out, as, I mean, virtual healthcare has exponentially increased thanks to the pandemic. That was a huge revolution in healthcare. And I suspect with the convenience of that being darn near unparalleled, we're going to see that increase throughout our lifetimes as well. And again, they're going to looking to get a ROI out of that $3.9 billion investment. Now, interestingly enough, though, in 2022, Amazon shut down Amazon Care, which was its urgent and primary care provider, with employees telling Insider that the program suffered from a confused approach and lack of consumer demand. So it'll be interesting if they try to rebrand this, because, again, that is a different thing in and of itself in terms of urgent care and primary care, because more often than not, that's where you do have brick and mortar, more of a physical infrastructure behind it. And of course, there's a lot of people raising privacy advocates because Amazon's purchasing One Medical. Well, yeah, I was going to say, I wish there were more people who were privacy advocates in the United States. You hardly hear from them around anymore. But yeah, that is another thing to be concerned about if you're conscientious of your intellectual property or your actual health information. There's going to be darn near nothing Amazon doesn't know about you, especially if you're foolish enough to actually have an Amazon Alexa in your house, always listening, which is how those devices work. Which, I mean, just think, if it's only pretends to start when you say, hey, Alexa, which, apologies if I just annoyed half the audience because they have Alexa in the background, but the only way that works is if it's always listening. Very similar to how you have a friend listening to some headphones. If you yell at the friend, hey, Bobby, well, he's not going to hear you unless the headphones are off and he's listening. It's quite literally that simple. And people have actually been prosecuted by their own Amazon hardware in their homes because the courts will subpoena data from Amazon. So again, you're paying for your own spyware, which is foolish beyond all belief. And having this added into that, it'll be interesting to see how many people, is there at a point at which Americans start to become more concerned about their privacy, as we've kind of seen this ebb and flow throughout the years where, you know, we'll see a big hubbub, a lot of people get really excited about it, they'll try to push some legislation, they'll probably try to get some neighbors concerned about it. Then other times, people just don't really care at all, more seemingly, relatively speaking. So let me know in the comments, is that one of your concerns if you were to adopt this Amazon expansion into healthcare, or do you just appreciate the additional convenience and you'll go for it? Let me know in the comments. It's fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, Nvidia is on track to release 3 AI chips for China 1 month after the United States bans the exportation of AI chips to China. So, interestingly enough, and this comes, let's see here, behind a paywall on Reuters by Stephen Nillis. Actually, are registered. Sign in really quick here. Let's see. Which is one of the biggest opportunities in tech, bar none, in terms of pretty much every company involved in the world, from IT to cars, they all want AI, and they all want to have the best chips on the market. And I mean, in terms of having a better chip manufacturer, you're hard pressed to find one that's beyond Nvidia. They literally have the greatest market share. They make, I mean, especially known for having making graphics cards. I mean, when I was building the podcast PC for this show, where I would actually edit the show and right now we're using DaVinci Resolve, which is a product by Blackmagic. And if you do have some recommendations, I appreciate it. It's one of those instances where they were just the industry leaders and they performed so much better than the competition, and they also licensed their technology. So not just do they make their own graphics cards, but they also license it out. In my case, I bought a Gigabyte manufactured graphics card, but it was of the architecture of the Nvidia. I think it was a 3080 Ti, I believe. My team and I put that together a little while back, so it eludes me at the moment. But this is an instance where China is one of the biggest markets on the planet, literally, which also makes it a interesting political quagmire when we have these political debates. So right now we're talking about, a big topic is the GOP primary, where that debate was a couple days ago. Well, they're all talking about all these possible bans on China and becoming less dependent on them. Well, all these chips are made there, but there's also huge business opportunities there. So you have the private sector businesses that, again, one of the issues with the economy is the uncertainty. Businesses have no idea how it's going to affect their business, and before you know it, they're just going to be so confused they just stop spending money, which is kind of the vicious cycle of destroying the economy because people just don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but it'll be interesting also to see if Nvidia tries to argue that they're a globally based company. They also, obviously, they're headquartered in the US, but let me see here. Nvidia. I don't know how they're going to get around that ban because, let's see here. In the U.S. exports, that was as recently as 2 weeks ago, so they put that export ban on them. HADP. Place orders. However, under stricter, Nvidia has a cancel. So that they're saying that, and again, this is thanks to readwrite.com. They're saying as of stricter rules announced October 17th, Nvidia must now either cancel their orders or obtain additional U.S. export licenses. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to gain these new licenses or what these licenses are doing, and if they'll even be able to get them granted. But again, with all the data we have right now, it looked like the U.S. had actually shut that down. So it'll be interesting to see. Granted, hindsight's always 2020 when it comes to stocks and many things in life. Granted, I wish I invested in Nvidia. I think they're around $400 per share. I mean, exponentially increasing because they just keep hitting all these major trends and being the best solution every time this trend comes along. So it'll be fascinating to see. Let me know in the comments. It'll be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Now going over to the culture part of the podcast, you have Jezebel, a famous feminist website, now shutting down after 16 years of operation. Now this comes to us thanks to Variety, and this is specifically by Todd Sprangler. They also noted that the parent company, GO Media, is laying off 23 staffers in addition to the subsidiary Jezebel shutting down. Now, Jezebel is a self-described, sharp-edged feminist news and opinion website, originally launched in 2007 by Gawker Media, which Jezebel carried the tagline. And again, if you have children listening or anyone with, just cover your ears because this is their tagline, which gives you a little insight into what they were as a company. So at the top of their website, Jezebel had the words, "Sex, celebrity, politics with teeth," unquote. Which perhaps they were just canceled because that was insulting to people who are teeth disadvantaged. Remember, not all of us have teeth. That is quite rude. Some of us wish we had better teeth. So perhaps the teeth community or the dental community came together and boycotted Jezebel to shut them down properly. Kidding. Obviously. Kind of. A little. Now, it looks like they actually attempted to sell the site a couple months ago, but of course, no one wanted it because the market is quite saturated. There are many opinion websites, of course, and there are also many opinion websites that are leaning very left, and there are very many that are feminist specific. I believe one is actually called Pink News, which some might argue is pejorative because they're insinuating that pink is only for girls, but another topic for another time, perhaps. And according to the media, or GO Media, CEO Jim Sprangler, who again, that's the parent company that's shutting this down, he says, quote, "As of this week, we are making a very, very difficult decision to suspend the publication of Jezebel. Few decisions over the course of my career were this excruciating, and I want to make it clear that there is no way a reflection of Jezebel's editorial team," unquote. No way was all caps. So this guy's very, very specific about that. And they say, quote, "Unfortunately, our business model and our audiences we serve across our network do not align with Jezebel's," unquote. This is, again, a CEO writing in a memo, which, of course, yeah. It's one of those things where the audience is there, but it's more of a niche audience, and there are many more options, especially today, which is a great thing as well. Beauty of capitalism. The best options are the ones that get supported by consumers. And I always debate, what is the market for feminist news? And don't get me wrong, there are a couple of very famous publications, but how many can the audience support? That's the multi-million-dollar question, or perhaps billion-dollar question, depending on how much media they put into it or how much fiscal support there is. Fiscal being money, not physically lifting. We know that's kind of a disadvantage, but nevertheless, the fiscal support behind it. Now, the CEO continued to say, quote, "And when that became clear, we understood that an expansive search for a new, perhaps better home that might ensure Jezebel a path forward. it became a personal mission of Leah Goldman, GO Media Deputy Editorial Director, who worked tirelessly on the project, talking to over 24 potential buyers. It is a statement to Jezebel heritage and bona fides that so many players engaged with us. Still, despite every effort, we could not find Jez a new home, unquote. So they talked to 24 companies, and they go, yeah, we're not buying that. Which means they couldn't even sell it for $1. Like, not even for, they couldn't buy, like, not even for $1. Like, I can't admit, I'm just so shocked. I wonder why. I mean, Megan Rapinoe perhaps could purchase it. She has copious amounts of money, and I'm sure she aligns on many of their values. But again, what's the ROI? How many people are paying into it? Especially as media is very quickly transitioning from being ad-supported to more subscriber-supported. I mean, the industry is being flipped on its head, so to say. So let me know in the comments. Are you surprised? I mean, overall, there is some media consolidation. We see a lot of people doing layoffs, and not just left-wing news, but middle and right-wing news. So let me know in the comments. Do you think this? Are you surprised that Jezebel is no longer a thing, and 24 people they met with said no, we won't buy it at all, not even for $1. Like, we only want the intellectual property that is this company. Just leave me alone. Which, what are the odds that 24 companies wouldn't want to buy your company? That's not great. But let me know in the comments. Are you gonna miss Jezebel, or at least miss laughing at it if you find that entertaining as well? Be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have McMahon planning to sell $700 million of TKO stock, which is a new publicly traded company, which is the entity combining the WWE and the UFC, which I still found fascinating in and of itself when the WWE, spoiler alert, again, cover your ears if you're a child, but it's basically the orchestra for guys. Like, it's all written and scripted. It's fake. Don't get me wrong, it's an entertainment product. Many people find it extremely entertaining and hilarious, and it is quite entertaining, especially to see some of the old scripts that The Rock would speak out on, and some of the things that The Rock would say back in the day. I say back in the day, it's probably the 90s, but the things he would say then, and then now, I mean, he would be canceled in a New York minute, and of course, The Rock, also known as Dwayne Johnson, he's very much politically speaking more left because he's in Hollywood, and if he were to say those things now, he would never be in another movie again. So it is quite entertaining to see those clips kind of resurface every couple months. Now, it looks like Vince McMahon, of course, or not, of course, if you're not really a big fan, you haven't tuned in, he was one of the former CEOs of WWE, and he's intending to specifically sell 8.4 million shares of common A-class stock in TKO holding groups, which was also engineered by Endeavor, who was the owner of the UFC, and that would be with the current price that he was selling at $79.80 per share, making the stock value worth around $670.3 million, and he will receive all the net proceedings from the offerings. So, I was going to say, I can't imagine. Oh, unfortunately, the government's going to steal more than half of it. So, again, and I forget if he lives, depending on what state he lives in, they're going to steal another 10% maybe. So, it sounds like a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, $300 million is still more money than we could possibly fathom. But still, it is kind of disappointing when you think, oh yeah, taxes. He built that business from basically nothing, and the government wins every time. Now, they know that TKO said it would repurchase approximately 100 million shares of its Class A common stock from the underwriters in a stock sale by McMahon. McMahon, who is the sole executive and chairman of TKO Group, owned 16.4% of the economic interest in TKO when the deal formed the company, closing in September. McMahon stepped down from the WWE's chief executive in 2022 amid a company investigation on the board into alleged hush money payments to women, accusing him of misconduct, sexually specific. And he noted that McMahon returned to the company in January 2023 as executive chairman to head up the efforts to sell the WWE, which of course eventually they successfully did in the end. So it'll be interesting to see. That is a huge sale of the stock, and depending on how big those sales are, that could negatively impact the stock. So I'm curious what's the market cap of TKO. It's still not, that's not even 10% of stock. So the TKO, the market cap currently as of this recording is $13.72 billion, which is quite a pretty penny. Now, granted, they're still not doing great. The 6-month trend So in the past 6 months, it's lost 22% of its value. Now, granted, they also did an IPO at $100, and one of the issues with IPOs or initial public offerings is, not all the time, but many times they're initially sold for more than what the market values them at. So they IPO'd at about $100.11 per share, and then it went down as a lot of people sold. So you usually want to give it a little time to even out, so to say. And of course, they did have the brilliant idea to take $100 million from Bud Light to have them be the exclusive sponsor of the UFC, which began a boycott in and of itself, which may explain why, in the past last week they were down about 7%. 1 month they're down 3%. So again, it'll be interesting to see how many people actually cancel their subscriptions. But I mean, Vince McMahon, if you're a fan of WWE, he is the man, the myth, the legend. He built it with his blood, sweat, and tears with his family. And I wonder, just nostalgia, how many people will miss him as he is selling it so much, and most likely it looks like he's going to be stepping away. Let me know in the comments, if fascinating to hear what you have to say. Now going over to the political part of the podcast, you have Christie's GOP Debate November 8th top video highlights, but with no video. If you do have suggestions for picture-in-picture software, I really appreciate it, because again, I've tried a couple, but keep having issues, and looking for something to do production picture-in-picture that could seamlessly integrate into the show. So if you have suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Even harsh critique and feedback is appreciated, because I always say that's how I grow the most. And it's not 100% known, but if you click the subscribe button, it may help with my stuttering and increase my enunciation. This is not a guarantee in life, nothing really is, but I think it could help, perhaps. Click the button and let's find out together. Now, the first highlight coming from Christie, and he was part of the GOP debate. You could not miss him. The cameras did have to zoom out a little bit to make sure you can get the whole Christie. Now, the first clip comes from him saying, "It's a gift to be an American. You can't truly say you love America unless you're ready to open up your heart to every American. I'm going to open up my heart to every American as president, and I'll return honesty and integrity to the Oval Office. We deserve and should accept nothing less." Again, this is directly from his Twitter account, or as 12 people call it, X account. And for him, it went pretty good. It got 109,000 views, which again, Christie, given his average view rate or number of views when he does tweet, that's pretty respectable for him. Although it did only get 1,900 likes. And thankfully, it's only about 1 minute and 2 seconds long. And thankfully for you, you don't have to see him. And oddly enough, the camera lens did not crack. There's a phenomenon where sometimes when the image is so abhorrent, there's a rumor that sometimes it could break a lens. In this case, unless they have multiple lenses on top of each other, I don't see the camera lens breaking in this instance. Although maybe just halfway through. Let's find out.
It's a gift to be an American. And I'm running for president of the United States because I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing the division. I'm tired of seeing the anger. And I can see in the eyes of Americans their exhaustion. Their exhaustion from the petty, personal politics that have taken over this country over the last number of years. I'm running for president to be a president of consequence, to do the big things, to make sure that America's role in the world stays number one, that we stand up for our friends and allies around the world, and we stand up for what we believe in right here at home. And it's not to eliminate our differences. Our differences has always been our strength as a country, not our weakness. But you can't truly say you love America unless you're ready to open up your heart to every American. I'm going to open up my heart to every American as president, and I will make sure that I return honesty, integrity to the Oval Office. We deserve and should accept nothing less. Governor, it's a gift.
Now, I apologize. I thought I may have made a mistake. I said this was from the RNC debate, the GOP debate, for the Republican nominee. But that sounded very reminiscent of a Democratic talking points. But I did do some fact checking. I do see the little elephant in the background, which again, an elephant and a donkey are the party mascots in the United States. I mean, could we have thought of something better for marketing? I know there's probably deep history. Nevertheless, another topic for another time. So, interesting. I mean, he's kind of, I don't know if he's intentionally leaning into the memes of his weight, which a lot of people critique him on that, which you could debate if that's a discipline thing, which some say might be indicative or reflective of his work ethic. There are some people who theorize that. I know a lot of fitness, or a lot of executives and I know a lot of people who are big into fitness because they think in order to perform at the best at work, you need to be sharp both mentally and physically. So hit the gym every day, read every day. And I'm of the thought that that works for me. So that's one of the ways I could work. I always tell people 105 hours a week can't be beat. Get up in the morning, hit the gym, read a little bit, either business or philosophy book, and then I get to work. And I don't know, to me, I just feel more refreshed and more alert once I can get a workout in. But again, that's just what I found that works best for me throughout the years. And I highly recommend it because exercise is addicting and you feel awesome. As a youth might say. Or I suppose they might say radical. Probably. Maybe. Maybe not. Nevertheless, into the comments section, we have someone by the name of Downtown Fairy saying, quote, just go home, you've made enough money, unquote. That person got 18 likes. Mr. K Street said, Trump, unquote, getting 13 likes. Jerry Watkins says, I don't agree with everything you say. You did a great job tonight. In a debate where I found myself yelling at the TV, feeling lack of hope for the Republican Party, you offered some hope and common sense. Thank you, unquote. Getting 63 likes. So again, this is why he's not pulling at 0%. He is getting a couple percentage points. Well, specifically a few, 3. But it's not 0. More than most people can say for now. A lot of comments getting between 0 and 3 likes, and they're all saying it's over, drop out. Here's one. Telsardian saying very true, much needed. That's 1 like. Albert says, Mr. Christie, respectfully, quick campaigning. You're going nowhere, getting 1 like. Let's see. Justin saying, remember when Chris Christie was on Seinfeld? And they have, finally, a little picture of George. It's an infamous Seinfeld episode where Kramer hits a golf ball into a whale, the blowhole, and George actually pulls it out. And this is George, the scene where George is in the cafe. Instead of the ball, it's a little Chris Christie on a lawn chair holding it. Now, I say that because it's one of the most popular responses. It got 14 likes. Mr. Alex Gadd said, quote, this is the first non-I hate Trump statement from his losing political run, unquote. Getting 1 like. Which, that's very true. His niche, or what he's been leaning into most, is never Trumpers, which there are those in the Republican Party. I don't think there's enough of those to win the nominee, but he is getting those, and I think DeSantis is starting to get some of those support, since DeSantis has been slowly starting to directly have more and more confrontational statements about Trump and critiquing Trump, which ironically will inevitably alienate the people who like Trump who may have been thinking of voting for DeSantis. Professor Elwood said, quote, meaningless slogans with a bold campaign strategy, unquote, getting 8 likes. Frank Doyle saying your doctors are going to open you up your heart next 5 years, getting 1 like. Y Regal says, why don't you return honesty and integrity to New Jersey? Bridgegate, why would we expect anything different? Unquote, getting 7 likes. A lot of people calling out the discrepancies between Chris Christie saying this and how he's been harshly insulting Trump. So I think that's the number one theme I've seen in these responses. But he did get, here we go. R.P. Smith said, good closing statements. Got 5 likes. Nora Cruz says, excellent debate, a voice of reason. Please keep going, getting 3 likes. And then a lot of people talking about that bridge. So interesting enough, again, it's not his worst tweet. Remember a couple weeks ago, we had an instance where he had 0 positive responses in his tweet, which is almost statistically impossible because supposedly I think he has family members, staff members. They're supposedly running a staff. That means not even one of them took 2 minutes to just say something like, great job, Uncle Chris. I don't know. Like, 0? Really? But nevertheless, let's go on to his second highlight of Chris Christie from the GOP debate. And this is one of the most controversial topics, which I suspect it might hurt Republicans. The spoiler alert is the abortion topic, because even within the Republican Party, there are different factions, different beliefs on if and when it is ever appropriate, and a lot of people saying it's never. So even within the Republican Party, it's a very divisive issue. Then on a national level, I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the national election, as it's become a states' rights issue. The Supreme Court relegated it back to the states to decide for themselves. So it'll be interesting to see if this plays out on a national level, where nationally that conversation has been had and it's been ruled by the Supreme Court. So it'll be interesting to see. Let me know in the comments if you think this is going to be a winning issue for the Republicans or not so much. I mean, they just had the election a couple of days ago, and a lot of people are pointing to that specific topic as one of the reasons why they may have lost. Now, granted, they also have a losing track record ever since Ronald McDonald took over, literally losing every single time. I don't fathom how she still has a job, but nevertheless. Christie, before this quick clip, says, quote, "To be pro-life for the whole life means that the life of a 16-year-old drug addict on the floor of a county lockup is precious, and we should get treatment for her. Pro-life is not just in the womb, it's the whole life." Which, again, I did a fact check. I thought this was a Republican, the GOP debate for the Republican nominee. And, again, that's a cliche Democrat talking point. I mean, it's true. You should always care about someone. And I would also argue the best way to help people, most efficient way to help people, is through community and religious organizations. They've historically been the most effective ways to do that. I would be fascinated to hear if you could put in the comments a successful government program. That'd be fascinating to hear. I've researched for years. I haven't found one. And let's play this quick 22-second clip.
We're not pro-life for the whole life. To be pro-life for the whole life means that the life of a 16-year-old drug addict on the floor of the county lockup is precious, and we should get treatment for her to restore her life. The 52-year-old who's drug addicted should make sure that any of his children who he's passed that addiction on to are treated well too. Pro-life's not just in the womb, Kirsten. It's for the whole life. We're not pro...
Which I don't know why Twitter has that issue where the video just repeats itself. Some say it's a bug or a feature. I would say it's a bug. But that's just me. Now, that clip, for Chris Christie, went pretty well in terms of the number of views. It got 127,000 views, but only 4.6 thousand likes. Now, historically speaking, the odds have always been against Chris in terms of responses being usually viscerally roasting him. And I'm not a gambling man, but if I were, I would say the odds for him getting a lot of positive responses are not so good. But let's dive in and find out. One of the first comments comes from John Ward saying, quote, "You had no value, time to hang up," unquote. You got 12 likes. Now, interesting enough, there's some positivity. Patty Brown says, quote, "You had a good night," unquote, getting 20 likes. A Green says, quote, "Man, I like you, but you'd realize you're in the Republican primary, right? You're talking to the wrong audience if you want to win," unquote. That got 12 likes, that being one of the most popular responses. And, of course, his weight comes into the equation. Roger Bird says, quote, "I 100% agree. That is why I keep telling you that you can easily lose weight on the carnivore diet and intense exercising and fasting," unquote, getting 1 like. And he did use all caps for easily. Scott GOP says, quote, "Food is an addiction too, Chris," unquote, getting 6 likes. Jacob Goldberg says, quote, "The elephant in the room," unquote, getting 4 likes. Mike Wolziski says, quote, "Pro-life for the whole life should include healthcare and reasonable gun laws," getting 40 likes. And when he says reasonable gun laws, I would interpret that as saying you get rid of the gun laws so that the good guys aren't kneecapped while the bad guys roam free and the government roams free. But we know that's not what he means. But again, that's a straight up Democratic comment in the replies. Ridiculous. Obama Kush says, quote, "First time I've ever heard a Republican say that. Too bad your party has become a cult." 18 likes. And perhaps the pot calling the kettle black? I mean, both political parties have become so tribal. I theorize, and I'm not original in this thought, is one of the situations or the ripple effects of the decrease in religious affiliations and religious involvements in the United States. People look for something else to fulfill themselves, and people are trying to ridiculously replace it with politics, which I don't recommend. Now, someone by the name of Mike Downs says, quote, "As a Navy vet, I enjoyed your response on what ships we need to build. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the current capacity to crank out subs faster than we are. If we want to increase our ship count, we need a major commitment to growing domestic shipbuilding and repair," unquote, getting 7 likes. And let's see here. Someone said wise words, but they got 0 likes. New Jersey Sting fan said, "Thanks for the gas tax," getting 1 like. So interestingly enough, he did get a couple positive responses, but they were very much Democratic talking points. Which again, I suspect he'd be a lot more successful running on the Democratic ticket these days. I mean, throughout his careers, we've kind of seen this throughout his career before, where people keep critiquing him for having pretty much all the policies of someone in the Democratic Party, and the people who are agreeing with him are sharing those philosophies more commonly held by people in that party. So I don't know what he's going to do after the GOP, after he doesn't get the nominee, unless, again, there's a huge statistical outlier, probably not really intended, huge. But as of right now, there's just no chance. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. Maybe he does finally switch parties. I mean, he would fit right in. Now on to the third highlight. He says, before the clip, he says, quote, "I'm the only person on the stage who will be honest about this. Social Security was established as a safety net program to make sure that no one would grow old in the country of poverty. Rich people should not be collecting it. And if we want this program, we need to raise the retirement age." Which is ridiculous. If you paid in the program, even if you're rich, you should get paid. They keep saying if you paid in, you should get paid. So yeah, if you're successful and you have copious amounts of, or some people might argue copious amounts of money, I wouldn't. But if you're successful, you should get that money back too. You paid into it. Now, again, this Ponzi scheme, literally Google or Brave search the definition of a Ponzi scheme, that is Social Security. It just, the numbers, it will not last. I mean, it used to be you had over 100 Americans paying per one person on Social Security. I mean, and throughout the years, the ratios got worse and worse and worse and worse. I believe now it's 3 or 2 person working for every one person on Social Security. Like, the ratio won't work. And people are living a lot longer, which is good, but we need to adjust these figures. And I'd also argue destroy it, because you know what's best for you and your family. You know how to save. Well, if you went to public school, you probably don't. But nevertheless, it's one of those things where it's one of those cliche, the government knows what's best argument. And they're going to force you to save. Ridiculous. Give the money back to the people. But that's just my 3 cents. Used to be 2 cents, but 40-year hyperinflation got charged 3 cents. Though, still free to click the subscribe button there. Or there. Or there. I don't know how your phone is oriented. Or, in the rare case, your desktop. Or very rare case, a compact desktop. Or a gateway. I kind of miss that old South Dakota cow company. I'm probably dating myself. The computers would ship in a box with cow spots on it. Nevertheless, now on to the clip.
A lot of programs in this country that we all pay for, that we don't get a direct benefit from. Food stamps is one of them. I've never, fortunately in my life, ever had me or my family on food stamps. But I'm glad it's there so that no one in this country goes to bed hungry at night if they have availability to that program. But I don't get a direct benefit. The fact is, on Social Security, remember why it was established. It was established as a safety net program to make sure that no one would grow old in this country in poverty. That's what we got to get back to. Rich people should not be collecting Social Security.
Governor, can you give me a specific age? 69, 70? What would the age be?
No, look, that's going to be a part of a negotiation with Congress, Kirsten. And hell, I'm not going to start negotiating until I get there. A lot of
yeah, I think the other candidates, actually Nikki Haley did have a good point where she said that it will have to be something where, you know, if you're age 20, like, we need to put a cap on this and a limitation. So everyone who's under 20 years old, this no longer applies to you. But that also would mean that they don't have to pay into it. This is one of the most awkward political things, because everyone with a modicum of business intelligence or financial intelligence knows this program cannot last. It's a Ponzi scheme. But if they were to hint or even whisper that, they're going to lose votes from people who are retired and collecting those benefits. So that's why they're all being very careful with how they're phrasing their responses, and they're all making sure that they know if you're collecting now, you'll keep getting your magical money. Now, that was one of the most popular, most viral moments from Christie. That got 1.1 million views, which is ridiculously good for Christie. And that, well, although the ratio is laughable to say the least, and I know public schools are at all-time low for mathematics. Well, science and history, too. In fact, a 32-year low for the ACT scores. And yet the public teacher unions say they deserve more money. Right. So nevertheless, we'll do some more value here than some public schools. Not all, but some. So it got 5,100 likes. It says 5,100 divided by 1.1 million views. Gives us 0.00463. Now, to turn into a percentage, we're going to multiply that by 100. That means 0.4336 people liked it. Or if we feel so inclined, we can round to 0.46%. That's not so good. Now, again, more often than not, the comments roast him like he roasts his food. Deep fry? Nevertheless, there's a joke in there if you squint hard enough. And Let's see what the comments say. Joe DeLiago says, quote, to save Social Security, here's what's needed. 1, have no cap. All wages are subject to 6.2%. 2, make sure employers have to pay them as well. That might curb executive pay when companies have to pay 6.2% on millions. 3, make it legislative proof. Congress can't touch it, unquote. I got 1.6 thousand likes, which is, again, one of the issues. Congress should just take the money out like a piggy bank, which also goes to show you why are people trusting the government, but nevertheless. Lee Zimmerman says, quote, raising the retirement age, you just lost whoever remaining support you had, Christie, unquote. Got 571 likes. Catherine Zoltan says, quote, whoever paid towards Social Security with the promises of collecting it later should be getting what they were promised. Whoever paid into it with the promise of when they would collect should get what they were promised. The fact that there's a gray area for you is a red flag. Red flag. The fact that you represent yourself as honest while suggesting that people should not get what they were promised as years went by and money was withheld from them through their wages is even more disturbing. This is not honesty, it is fraud. And she got 805 likes, which is one of the most popular ones. Scott Womack says, quote, and yet another reason I would never vote for Chris Christie. 403 likes. ESN Watcher says, quote, you've never gone to bed hungry a day in your life, unquote, getting 270 likes. Brandon Let's Go Bridges says, quote, I'm less concerned with rich people collecting it after they paid into it for years than I'm concerned about people who are entering the country and never paying into it, yet they collect it, unquote. 475 likes for that comment. True says, quote, ah yes, New Jersey government experience known for honesty, integrity, and not total corruption, unquote. Getting 90 likes. And I appreciate good sarcasm. Let's see here. AKA said, quote, did he make any lame Donald Duck joke again? LMFAO. Person got 79 likes. Dr. Darush says, quote, bad idea to limit Social Security by income level. Everyone that pays the Social Security tax should benefit the program. We don't want this converted to another welfare program, unquote. Getting 83 likes. So, interestingly enough, as the youth might say, he was viscerally ratioed. Again. Let's go. Here's one more final highlight of Chris Christie. And thankfully, it's only 11 seconds long. He says, quote, he says, anybody who is going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focused on staying out of jail cannot lead this party, unquote. Got 227,000 views and 4.4 thousand likes.
Say this about Donald Trump. Anybody who's going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country. Right, and it needs to be said plainly. Governor, thank you.
Let's see here. Ryan Layler says, quote, he's literally speaking at a rally, unquote, getting 34 likes. Again, reference to Trump being at a rally at the very same time. Nugget for Truth says, quote, love all the likes on this are 99% Democrats, unquote, getting 50 likes. And they did use a clown emoji. Professor Elwood says, advocating for political persecution is a bold campaign strategy, unquote, getting 40 likes. MAGA Girl, who gets B- for marketing. It is a girl, but she does not have a iconic red MAGA hat. What a shame. Now this MAGA Girl says, quote, you will never be president, unquote. All caps on that. Never, getting 20 likes. Someone did a little meme of the Toy Story movie where that Buzz Lightyear saying, there's no signs of intelligence anywhere. And he says, this is so Chris, getting 17 likes. Deborah Green says, quote, from jail, Trump is a better leader than you'd ever be. He is sacrificing himself for Americans. What have you sacrificed, unquote? Getting 34 likes. Hell's Right Again says, quote, anybody who is going to be spending the next year and a half a country of their life looking for all-you-can-eat buffets cannot lead the party of their country, unquote, getting 59 likes. Which is an interesting question. When was the last time we had an overweight president? Do you think that matters to the American public? Granted, this is social media. There's going to be more bombastic comments than face-to-face or the real world. But every time Chris Christie has a post on Twitter, or as 12 people call it X, many people will make direct references to his weight. There's a lot of material to work with, some might say. So let me know, do you think that's an influence in terms of presidential elections? It'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say in that regard. Someone by the name of Totally Not a Bot, which makes me suspicious, but nevertheless, this Mr. Totally Not a Bot says, quote, "Is it true Ronna McDaniel is just you in drag," unquote? And there's a picture, side-by-side comparison, having Chris Christie on one side and Ronna McDaniel on the other. Ronna McDaniel does have better hair. I'll give her that. That did get 89 likes. And a lot of people in the comments saying they have trunk derangement syndrome. He's at 3% of the polls. Chris Christie, you're a joke. And these are all getting between 0 and 5 likes. A lot of people saying you're a clown. Bridgegate, are you confessing? Are you ducking out? Conservative Voice said, "You're simply not sincere, nor are you likable. Just the truth," getting 9 likes. So throughout all the comments, as the youth might say, he was certainly ratioed. And again, he's consistently polling at about 3% in the poll aggregator, the 538. And I don't suspect it'll go up too much higher as DeSantis starts to lean into critiquing Trump more and more. He's going to start getting more of those never Trumpers. So it'll be interesting to see if this does have a positive result on his campaign numbers. But I suspect the outlook will be for Chris Christie, grammar aside, the outlook will be not so good. Other interesting political news, you have Scott GOP Debate November 8 highlights with no video. However, if you have suggestions for production software for picture-in-picture, let me know in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm looking for a very intuitive solution. It's easy to use, and I've tested a couple, but I keep having issues for having the 2 screens work at once. And I tried updating the camera drivers. So again, I appreciate the feedback and critique. So if they have suggestions, please let me know in the comments section below. Now, this is the first highlight, and this, again, Tim Scott on social media is not doing very great. This got only 873 views. This is specifically from Team Tim Scott, which they did pay for the verified account, so you see they have a blue check mark. But yeah, that's not so great. Not to brag, but I think I got 500 views when I shot a Staccato 2011 a little while back on the Twitter. But nevertheless, so he says, quote, "If you're able-bodied American, you work. If you take out a loan, you take it back. Or you pay it back, rather. If you commit a crime, you go to jail. If God made you man, you play sports against man." This is about 1 minute long. We'll play it here.
There's a crisis that is growing in our nation, and that crisis is cultural and spiritual. We need a renewal, a great awakening. We should reject the left's valueless, faithless, fatherless society. We should turn back to faith, patriotism, and individual responsibility. We should stop choosing victimhood and start choosing victory. We should stop kneeling in protest and start kneeling in prayer. There are basic truths that built this country. If you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men. I do not just want to... Audience, please. I do not just want to win the battle against Joe Biden. I want us together to win the war. The war for our Christian conservative values that changed my life.
Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, you have...
That's my message.
And again, that's a great message for the Republican nominee. I'm surprised it's not resonating with more people. But again, he has been struggling in the polls for quite some time. If I pull up the poll aggregator, 530, if I could spell, that usually helps. Sometimes, usually. So 538.com, and then again, that's a poll aggregator. And again, the last polls that they have are from November 3 to 5th. That's the most recent data. He's still coming in at 2.2%. So again, he has some messages that I really think will resonate with the Republican Party and Republican people, some of the voters, but it's just not gaining any traction. And literally, we could actually read all the comments, actually, because there's so few. So there's one comment that says, "Well done, sir," from Mr. MJ51078. It got 0 likes. Now, the video itself got 873 views and 20 likes. And then the rest of these are pejorative memes from someone by the name of Leftover News with a blue wave. And they're all just calling, let's see, being very racist and calling him pejorative terms and just trolling him basically. But that's it. But again, Again, I think I'm surprised not more Republican voters aren't hearing the message, and maybe he's just not ready for the presidential nominee yet. There's a lot of people suspect that, timing is half of everything in life, as Wise Man would said. But again, he's saying very traditional conservative messages, which I think will resonate with a lot of people. For some reason, he's just not getting those numbers yet. Now, another highlight from the GOP debate from Tim Scott, and this is the most controversial subject, I believe, of the night, in which they covered abortion. And he has a statement in which his text before the tweet says, quote, "I'm 100% pro-life, I'm 100% pro-life voting record, and I will always stand up unapologetically." Now, this one got a lot more views. It's got 17,600, and this is specifically from his personal Vote Tim Scott account, or that's his hashtag. The name is Tim Scott. And that one, he does have about 150,000 followers, which is pretty. I mean, that's not great. I mean, that's like, I think Nikki Haley has the least of the big five that are left, and Christie, they both are just shy of 1 million, and I believe DeSantis is about the same. I think Vivek is past 1 million. So, again, Tim Scott needs to catch up.
I'm 100% pro-life. I have had 100% pro-life voting record. I would certainly, as President of the United States, have a 15-week national limit. I would not allow states like California, Illinois, or New York to have abortion up until the day of birth. I certainly would not allow for governors, former governor, Democratic governor of Virginia, who talked about infanticide. We need a 15-week federal limit. 3 out of 4 Americans agree with a 15-week limit. 47 out of 50 countries in Europe agree with a 15-week limit. I would challenge both Nikki and Ron to join me at a 15-week limit. It is in our nation's best interest, and frankly, I think it's unethical and immoral to allow for abortions up until the day of birth. We have an opportunity in this nation to stop that reckless behavior from states like California, New York, and Illinois.
So again, that was...
I'm 100% pro-life. I have had...
Good old Twitter, always resetting the videos. And again, I got 17,600 views and 698 likes and 3 bookmarks. It looks like... Let's see here. I got a lot more replies, 147 replies. Let's see. I mean, again, these are very traditional conservative values. I would think they would be more positively responded or recepted. Well, let's dive into the comments and find out. Someone by the name of Democrat Rick says, quote, "So you're against the death penalty then, and you for helping these unwanted lives financially," unquote, 11 likes, which is a cliche response that we've heard for years. And again, nonprofits and religious organizations are some of the first and most effective ways to help those in need in those situations. So it's an old red herring, which, again, it's a fascinating metaphor. Go down that rabbit hole another time. 2 metaphors to press 1. Someone by the name of Nikki Barnes says, quote, "And yet no women have decided to build a family with you. Why is that?" Getting 25 likes, which that is unique. He is one of the few who is apparently single. I think he said he has a girlfriend, but there's not a lot of pictures with him. So it's interesting that as politicians use their families for building their brand, for promotional materials, he's kind of left out in that regard, and there are some people jabbing him for that. Let's see here. A lot of people... Who is this? Someone with a Trans Life flag guitar by the name of Ben McGehee, who says he's a bass for the Imagine Dragons. He posted multiple... Well, Lazy just posted the same thing multiple times. While he donated a link for giving abortion funds. Let's see here. Again? I mean, at least say something different, but is this the same thing? Let's see. Gator Bayou says, quote, "And 79% of Americans are against you," unquote, getting 2 likes. Let's see. Amy Ids says, quote, "You're not standing up for life, you're standing up for oppression. There's an important distinction that American women must understand. Tim Scott does not believe our relationship with our higher power should be respected, only his." Unquote. She got 4 likes. Although, how dare she assume what he is? How does she know if he's a man or not? A little rude if you ask me. But nevertheless, back to the comics section. Lee Tiat Profound says, quote, "Just not the life of the mother or her right to choose her own destiny or control her body." Unquote. Getting 3 likes. And again, I'm not too surprised to see more disagreements in the comics section compared to the other statements he's made, because this is one of the most polarizing subjects in the United States, culturally and politically. USA Hypocrisy says, quote, "Until that life is born, then it's individual responsibility time," unquote. Getting 2 likes. Jeez. Some of them saying, "I understand why your pops left you. I don't blame him." That's from Facebook Political Prisoner. Fran Peter says, quote, "You never have to get an abortion, but leave me alone," unquote. Getting 2 likes. And again, most of these comments, let's see here. Someone by the name of Steve Gee with a blue wave, a painter thing, a dog emoji, a car, a candy bar, a music sheet, flowers, and a gay pride flag, all within his name. That is a lot of emojis. And I get suspicious when a man uses more than one emoji. Even one is sometimes pushing it. Nevertheless, this person does say, quote, "Pro-life my ass," middle finger emoji, "You're all for guns and cutting Medicare and Social Security," unquote. Getting 3 likes, which is one of the most popular responses. And then, again, another cliche red herring non-argument. Guns are literally also what save millions upon millions of lives. Hundreds of millions of lives. And it's one of the great things that help all men are created equal. A wise man once said God created man, but Samuel Colt made man equal. Him being one of the most successful entrepreneurs and designers in history, creating the repeating Colt revolver. Until then, they were all bastardized mechanisms not really working right. You had cylinder misfirings. And fascinating enough, Gaston Glock had the same birthday. Not the year, obviously, but the same month and day. Which, of course, he's the founder of Glock. Or is it Gustav? ADHD, what is the Glock founder's full name? Kicking myself for not having it at the tip of my tongue. No, I was right. It was Gaston Glock. Yeah, he's born July 19th, 1929. And he is still alive, age 94. And of course, his brand is synonymous with reliability. Everyone knows that brand by now. But nevertheless, back to his comments. Let's see here. Let's see. Smack says, quote, "Did you really cast Democrats as faithless and fatherless in your closing comments? That is irresponsible, and I despise you for that," unquote. Getting 3 likes. I mean, one could make an argument for the policies they support have it exponentially increase the rate of fatherless homes. If you look at the benefits for single motherhood, if you look at the rate of single motherhood before the welfare benefits correlate specifically for that, I mean, it exponentially went from, I believe, 20% to 70% in some demographics. It is a cause of concern. A lot of people, including myself, are worried that you're quite literally incentivizing that behavior. And again, I think most of us want all the same end goals. We just have different ideals on how to get there. And I think we all want, happy, wholesome families who can prosper. We just have different methodologies on how to get there and how to achieve that goal. Which is why I think we should actually have more of these public debates, so you can have a little bit more insight into, it's great, I like what you're saying, but how are you going to get there? What's your methodology? And yeah, it looks like most of the comments are just saying, are you wasting your time? You're an embarrassment. Then you'll lose. While calling for war, got 3 likes from Chris K. So needless to say, that was not great as well in terms of the response ratio. Now let's go to the last highlight. Now this comes from townhall.com, and this is his closing statement. And looks like it is exact copy paste of the text, so I'll just play it out loud really quick. And this did get 35,000 views and 409 likes.
There's a crisis that is growing in our nation, and that crisis is cultural and spiritual. We need a renewal, a great awakening. We should reject the left's valueless, faithless, fatherless society. We should turn back to faith, patriotism, and individual responsibility. We should stop choosing victimhood and start choosing victory. We should stop kneeling in protest and start kneeling in prayer. There are basic truths that built this country. If you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men. I do not just want to...
Audience, please.
I do not just want to win the battle against Joe Biden. I want us together to win the war. The war for our Christian conservative values that changed my life.
Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, you have...
That's what I'm asking you.
So I'll come and repeating a couple of his talking points, but again, in terms of traditional conservative Republican values, that's a spot-on message. So it is fascinating to see that it's not resonating with more prospective voters, as again he continues to be darn near the bottom of the race thus far with all these primary polling. I mean, if you go to that good old website poll aggregator 538.com, right as of right now, and again it changes quite frequently, but Tim Scott's still coming in at 2.2%. So a little bit below Chris Christie. Chris Christie's at 3.1%. So, I mean, a lot of people are saying he's great where he is right now. Maybe he'll be president in a couple of years. But for some reason, it's just not resonating with enough prospective voters. And in all these primary polls, people are choosing go for someone else. So let me know in the comments, do you think, again, it'd be an outlier to say the least, statistically speaking, for him to get the nominee. But why do you think his marketing or his campaign isn't working right now? Is he just not saying the right things? Is he not being bombastic enough in his speech, or enunciating more? Or does he need to do more hand movements? I mean, what does it just feel like? It's just missing the spark? Let me know what you think. It'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Now, going on to the business blunder of the day, you have Beyond Meat to lay off employees as their sales fall about 9% in fiscal Q3. Now, this is from OregonLive.com. And saying that they are planning the layoffs. Now, Beyond Meat last week reported a revenue of $75.3 million for the July through September period. That was far short of the estimated $86.5 million that the Wall Street had anticipated, according to the analysts polled by FactSet. Beyond Meat cut its third quarter and full year revenue forecast last week, or a couple weeks ago, saying it anticipated a rebound in the plant-based meat sales during the quarter that didn't occur. The company said it would cut 65 non-production jobs, about 19% of their workforce, and cut a broader view of operations, or conduct a broader view of operations, rather. In a conference call with his investors a couple of weeks ago, Beyond Meat President and CEO Ethan Brown said the company is considering cutting underperforming products like the plant-based jerky and reducing the size of its operations in China, where demand is growing but not quickly as Europe. It's also continuing to cut its inventory. Quote, to drive down the type of cost reduction, we're pursuing everything we had to be on the table, unquote. Now, it looks like Beyond Meat's international retail sales rose 39%, while international food services jumped 79%, largely due to the European demand for the plant-based burgers and nuggets at McDonald's. Now, McDonald's, for some odd reason, doesn't sell those in the U.S., which, again, I don't know if we were the country that founded or started the hamburger, but we sure as hell perfected that thing. And you can't beat grass-fed meat. But that's just my 3 cents. It used to be 2 cents, but 40-year hyperinflation, gotta be 3 cents. Though, it's still free to click the subscribe button, which in itself might help with my stuttering and increase my enunciation. It might. I'm not a doctor, but that's a theory I'm trying to work out here. Now, it'll be interesting to see. They said that the U.S. sales fell 34% in the third quarter, and the food services fell 22% as restaurants like Panda Express had limited time promotions for Beyond Meat products, and they didn't repeat those offerings this year because they're terrible ideas. If they were profitable and good ideas, they would have done the idea again. And they also noted that U.S. dollar sales of fresh meat alternatives like plant-based sausage and burgers were down 21.5% this year compared to through October 8, according to Ceranica, a market research firm. Frozen plant-based meat sales, including items like tenders and nuggets, were down 6%. So it looks like Beyond Meat shares of their stock fell 5% to $6.62 per share last Wednesday, down 46% from the start of the year. Wow. So it's about half off, though I would still argue it's overvalued given the lack of demand for this product. And again, with all the oils, seed oil is a big point of controversy in the health community. There's a lot of people debating if it's good or bad for you. And all the chemicals and all the things it takes to make some of these products, I just can't see there being a mass adoption of this mystery goop. And again, I did have a vegan. I had a friend from India for faith reasons. He would only eat these types of things, and I believe I tried a Boca burger, and for what it was okay. But again, it wasn't trying to replace the hamburger. It was just an alternative for that market, which made sense for them. And it's a profitable idea. I think they have the Boca burger around pretty much a couple major retailers. But this additional mystery stuff, I don't think there's a mass market for this product unless the government forces it upon people. Now, let me know in the comments, do you think this will ever be mass accepted in the United States when we have, if you're really fortunate, you can afford even organic grass-fed beef? I mean, there's some restaurants where the food is phenomenal and you can't beat a good steak. So let me know in the comments, do you think that there will ever be that type of adoption rate in the U.S. to actually make this a profitable idea? Or do you think it's going to kind of fizzle out like a food fad from the 80s and the 90s? Let me know. It'll be fascinating to hear what you have to say. By having that revenue drop 9%, their stock crashing, and it looks like this just is not a tasty idea. Quite the antithesis is quite disgusting. But that's just me. All that said, that is the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in. Again, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of November. So if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, any critique, even if it's harsh feedback, is greatly appreciated in the comment section because that's how I help grow and develop and improve the product for everyone. And I hope to make a great show, have everyone have a good time. Also, lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight,